As we were in the desert, and I went out to the desert to pray. I did. I did pray. But as I was out there, I just really asking God, what is it you want to say? I do always have things in mind, and I do study, and what we're going to talk about is something I planned on talking about. But as I was in the desert, I just kind of was looking around at the guys and seeing them have fun, seeing how they related together. There were a lot of guys there that we didn't know that came from other churches that had heard about it, or guys that didn't go to church that had been invited, and it was just really fun to get to know them. One of the things you notice when you go out and you shoot guns and stuff is guys will look at other guys' guns, and then they get ideas of what's the next gun they're going to buy. So honey, no. We do tend to imitate each other, I found. And that was one of the things I was noticing. And as I was thinking about the word that the Lord, I feel, has to share with us, I feel like he's saying that we are to imitate him in all that we do. You know, seriously, one of the things that I find about people is we always watch other people to see what's acceptable, right? So when you come to this church, if you've not been here, you're probably looking around to say, what's acceptable for me to do and what isn't. I remember when I visited Kelly's grandparents' church, and they were from a little town called Pickaway, Kansas. I think there were 4 people that lived there. And it was a little tiny Catholic church, and I have never really spent much time in the Catholic church. And so the minute I walked in, I was looking for what should I do and what shouldn't I do. And I watched what people did and wanted to make sure that I wasn't completely out of line with speaking in tongues and raising my hands and running around and up and down the aisles. So, no. But we do. When you came in here, when you came for the first time at this church, you looked around to say what's acceptable and what's not. That's just kind of what we normally do in life, and we look for a comfort zone, a place that we're accepted, a place that looks a little like us. I remember going to Uganda the first time. You know, we learn what's acceptable by imitating people. You walk outside and you see a group of teenagers go by, and half of the guys have their pants down around their rear end. And you would say, in many cultures, why don't their pants fit? But in their culture, that's just how you wear your pants. That's what's acceptable, and that's what helps them to feel included. And I remember going to Uganda the very first time and going into a church service, and the worship leader got up, and he began to speak in this kind of an accent from Uganda. He was Ugandan, but he had watched TBN. And so he imitated what he saw on TBN, and so he spoke like they spoke. And I just thought it was so interesting that you have this Ugandan person who's never been to the United States that learned to do worship by watching TBN and talking like them. You see, that's the way you talk when you lead worship. Carl's not learned it yet, but that is the way that you talk. We imitate. We all imitate something. We learn what's acceptable. We learn how to be included by imitating people that we admire or imitating the people that we're around. One of the things that I learned that I began to do early in my teenage years was look for things that I liked in people that were likable. And then I wanted to incorporate those things. I would find out what is it that I really like about this person, and I could try to incorporate that into my life. I have a very good friend, his name is Rip Pratt, and I remember going out and spending a day with Rip. And when I was with Rip, I felt like I was the only person in his life. When you're with Rip, he would so concentrate on you, and it would be about spending time with you, that if somebody else came around, he wouldn't be rude, but you would find out that he's with this person. I remember spending a day with him, and then about a week later, I see him somewhere, and he's with somebody else, and I went up and I said hi. And though he was very nice to me, as he's one of my best friends, it became very evident to me that he was spending time with this other person. And I thought, that's what I really like about him. I like that when I'm with him, he's with me. And it's about being with me. And so it's one of those things that I've not learned completely how to do, but one of those things that I want to incorporate into my life is to imitate that kind of thing. When people are with me, I want them to know they have my attention, that I'm with them, that I want to be with them, and that I enjoy being with them. And so that's one of the things that I try to incorporate into my life. There are many things over the years that I've seen in people that I want to be like that. There are things about Carl I've tried not to incorporate. No, there are things about Carl that I want in my life, honestly. I get to spend a little time with Carl, and I just love it, because there's things about Carl that I go, okay, I want to be more like that. We're all imitators, quite honestly. Actually, Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 1, he says, be imitators of me as I am of Christ. To be able to say, be an imitator of me. You know, I want to be the kind of person that I can say to you, imitate me. Watch my life and imitate me as I imitate Christ. And that's what I hope that we as a people become, as a people that really seek to imitate Christ. What is he really like, and how can I be that way? I mean, that's what this is all about. Quite honestly, getting up and giving a talk, y'all going to forget this. I'll probably ask you later today, hey, what did I talk on? And you'll all go, But one of the things I want you to remember, imitate Christ. Get to know him so intimately. Get to find out what it is you like about him. And then imitate him. We've been studying the book of Matthew, the Beatitudes, kind of the Sermon on the Mount. The Beatitudes really describe this person that you become when you know Christ. It's really the character that we take on. It actually invades us when we know Christ. You can tell the difference between a believer and a non-believer when you look at the qualities that we see in the Beatitudes. And so, looking at those, I encourage you to read through those and say, how does that look in my life? Is God working that in my life? And then begin to do that, because, guys, we look different. We have to look different, or we offer no hope. We offer no hope to anybody. And so, this thing we call Christianity is a real thing. It's something that can really, really, really change you in a great way. Or we can live it out in a religious way and just kind of go through the motions of trying to imitate what we think we're supposed to look like as Christians, and then kind of fake our way through it. And we do really well when we're in here, but then we get in the car and what happens? See, being an imitator of Christ, knowing the character of Christ, having that brought to you and given to you and instilled in you will change you. It will change you, and you will look different than the rest of the world. You will do life different than the rest of the world. You'll do work different than the rest of the world. You'll do marriage different than the rest of the world. Everything about us will begin to look different than the rest of the world, and not in a weird way. We tend to think we got to look weird in order to be spiritual. We don't. Can I just tell you that God made you just the way you are, and you're not junk? There's some of you that just, you look at yourselves and you go, I wish I looked like Don. I wish I was a man and I could go to DSO. I'm tired. I am a mess. No, but really, God made you the way you are. He wants you. When he calls you, he doesn't call you to be Carl or me or anyone else. He calls you, and you're still you when he calls you. He will change things about you, but you're still you. You'll still have the same interests. It's kind of cool. You don't have to give up everything. You're you, and he made you complete. In his image, you're made. And so you're not junk. And some of you wish you were somebody else, or you had certain qualities. You know what? He made you for a reason. And you're going to, as you find out who he's made you to be, as you just honestly walk before him, there's things he'll change about you. They'll cut off the rough edges a little bit. I love when there's new Christians that come in, because they're just so messy. You know, all of a sudden they've met Jesus and they just know, oh, this is it. And then they start to talk about it, and all these flowery words are in their sentences. All of these words where if we've been a Christian long enough, we go, oh, that's offensive. You know, they talk in a way that's just real. It's just them, and they don't even know. All they know is that Jesus has changed them. He's pulled them out of where they were. He's given them this joy, and now they're trying to express it in every way they can. And a lot of times, they do it in an unacceptable way to the religious people. They just do. Religious people can be offended by new believers. I can't wait for new believers. I just love that they drop the F-bomb once in a while. That's so cool. It is. It's so cool. I love that they say inappropriate things. I do. They're just themselves. And I want to be able to be a church that receives people. Just receives people right where they're at. And we don't require them to imitate things that they shouldn't imitate. We don't require them to jump through spiritual hoops that they need to jump through in order to look acceptable to us as a church. That we would just accept people right where they're at, love them right where they're at. See, we talked a couple of weeks ago about you are the salt of the earth. Salt is something that brings flavor. It's something that you want on your food. It's this savory thing of us being a people that are fun to be around. That when people are here, they're going, wow, there's something about that place that I want to go back and get more of it. There's something about that person that I just really like being around. See, salt, if you've lost your savor, if you've become this religious person that just looks more like a sour lemon than a salty steak, then it's time to look and say, what's it become about for me? See, Jesus says, you're the salt. You're the thing that will draw people, just your very lives. But if you've lost your savor, you're good for nothing. And so you're the salt of the earth, he says. Then he goes on, and he says, you are the light of the world. In verse 14, you are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but they put it on a stand. And it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they will see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. As a little boy, I remember going to church, and some of you may have experienced this. There's this little song that we used to sing. And it says, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. And you'd hold up one finger. I see Rose doing it. And I'm going to let it shine. And you just hold this finger. This was your little light. And I'm going to let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Don't let Satan it out. Don't let him blow it out. I'm going to let it shine. It's interesting how Satan blows it out. It is, even when we don't notice that he's done it. We don't shine sometimes because we don't get out from under the bushel and let it shine. We shine in here. This is not the only place to shine. See, you are now a light set on a hill. Shining means you leave these doors and you go out and you shine. The church has made this the place to shine. And quite honestly, Jesus said, this is the bushel. Don't hide it. We tend to let this become the point. This was never the point. Okay? This is a place that we come, we have fellowship together, we encourage each other, because when we're shining out there, sometimes it gets difficult. But you see, he says, go out and let it shine. Let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to God. Living life in a bubble is what we often do as Christians. We live in this spiritual little bubble that we've created for ourselves that's safe. We really do. And so what happens when we do that is Satan just, it's blown out. Because it's not shining. It may still be shining in here. But when we make this the point, when we make just this our life, then we're missing the point. And we can tend to be a light that's been blown out. I remember going on a trip down the Rogue River a few years ago, and there were 3 pastors. I wasn't a pastor at the time. And there were 3 pastors on the trip, and we stopped to camp one night. And around the campfire, they all started kind of talking. And they started talking about how people should be in church more. You know, one of them says, you know, we have a Sunday morning, and we have a Sunday evening, we have a Wednesday night Bible study, there's choir practice on Thursday, and Tuesday night we have home group. On Saturday, we try to do something around the church, and I'm sitting listening to this, and they're all kind of agreeing. And I remember saying at one point, guys, I'm not a pastor, but when do your people get to go out and meet non-Christians? When do they get to do what they're called to do, which is to go out and influence the community? See, sometimes we make it about this, and that you've got to be here all the time. Can I tell you, I would rather you're not here all the time. I mean, I like you here on Sunday morning. That's pretty cool. And I think that small groups are really important. But the most important thing is that you're going out and you're shining. And when you go out to shine, it's not usually with other Christians where you need to shine. It's the world that needs to see your light. It's really important that we go out and we know non-believers. If you don't know any, and I said this the last time I spoke, really get out there and meet them. We talked about how Carl is going into his new apartment. He's meeting people all over the place. And he's having a ball doing it. And people are wanting to know more about Carl because he's salty. He is. He tastes good. Being around Carl, I love being around Carl. I make fun of him, but I love being around him. See, how are we going to impact if we continue to hide our light in the church? We're not. And so we need to get outside these walls. We need to let people see who we are, not to isolate ourselves. Jesus was among the people. He hung out with people. He spent time in some of the craziest places with some of the most unacceptable people. He partied with prostitutes and thieves and tax collectors. You know, the religious people were the ones that got on him. They called him a drunkard. Why? Because he went and partied. He didn't sin. He made wine at a party. The best wine at a party. And it wasn't grape juice. It was actually wine at a party. Now, does that mean that we should all go out and drink? No. No. But it does mean that I can be in a place where people are and I don't have to be offended by it. And I can be light in that place. And that's what Jesus was. Those people wanted to be around him. He was fun to be around. And it was the religious people that would look at him and say, that's wrong. Yet, when it all came down to it, they could find no fault in him. Look, the world looks at Christians as a people who are out to get them in some way. We talked about the Amway salesman. We're seen as trying to persuade them to do something for us. And it's kind of more about us than it is about them. Sometimes it's like, let me get a notch in my belt so I can come back to church and give this testimony to this person that I prayed the sinner's prayer with. 8 of them this week. Wow, that's great that they're not here. And sometimes I've actually had people tell me, yeah, I prayed the sinner's prayer because if I didn't, he wouldn't leave me alone. So it's the way that they can get you to leave them alone. See, sometimes people out there think you want something from them, that you don't really love them. And so as believers, letting our light shine is literally going out and loving people right where they're at for who they are. Nothing more, nothing less. See, that's salty. People love to be loved. People love to be accepted. They love to have a place where they don't have to be somebody they're not. They can be themselves, and you're not offended by it. Talk about my guys that I get together with on Monday nights, and we play poker, and they do everything they can to offend me, just to see if they can. They do every possible thing to offend me, and I laugh, and I enjoy them. And then when we're one-on-one, it's just amazing to see as they let down their defenses because I was unoffendable, because they didn't have to be somebody they weren't to spend time with me. And it's just been so much fun to watch them grow. Are you attractive by your lifestyle? You are the light of the world. The city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor can a people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. Let people see who you are. Go out and let your little light shine, shine, shine. As Christians, let's stop isolating ourselves from the world. Let's do what Jesus did. Let's be among the people. Really. Stop living in a bubble. How are you going to impact if you continue to hide your light here in the church? Live your life among them. This is key. Love them. Spend time with them. Be honest with them. But spend quality time with them. You are the light of the world. The city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp, put it under a basket, put it under a stand. It gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they will see your good works and give glory to God who is in heaven. What does it look like? Good works. You see, when you are saved, it's not because of your good works, but it's unto good works. Good works automatically come out of you. It's not what you do, the good works that get you saved. It's when you're saved, they naturally flow out of you from that place, from looking like Him. And so letting your light shine is literally going out and doing good works. Whether it's seeing someone who's older and frail and taking their bags out to a car, and you go over and you help them with it. I remember Carl shared this story a few months ago. He stole it from me, actually. It was my aunt, and she is in one of those little carts that you put the groceries on and you're riding out to your car, and she gets out to the car, and this Christian guy comes up to her and says, "Hey, can I pray for you?" And she said, "Yeah." So he prayed for her, and then he left. And here she is in this cart with the bag still there, and there's nothing that he did for her other than be able to maybe go back and tell somebody, "Hey, I prayed for this lady at the store." Did he love her? No. And she was really taken back by it. She wrote a thing on it on Facebook that he really didn't care for her. It was all about him. And so what do? We go out and we do good works. We let our light shine. Be salty, taste good. In the same way, let your light shine so that others will see your good works. We are the light of the world. You see, we can't do this under the roof of a building. We're going to look different. Peter says it this way in 1 Peter 2:12. Live such good lives among pagans that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they will see your good deeds and glorify God on the day that he visits us. You see, I hear all the things that Christians do wrong. And I have to actually, when I'm with my guys, I've had to live out a life that looks so different. It broke down every one of those barriers all along those years of Christians that do wrong. And there are some. And they look at me and they say, so, how much do you take out of the offering plate every week? Really? Because what is it to be a Christian? If you give to me, God will bless you, so you give me, and God will bless you 100-fold, so give to me generously. That's what they hear. And so what do they see? They see on TV guys asking for money all the time. So Christianity is about pastors who just want money. And so you have to live through all of that. You have to live all of that stuff down. And so do good works. So though they accuse you of doing wrong, they're proven wrong by how you are. Living our lives among the pagans, right in the middle of those who do not believe in God, that's where you're supposed to be. Are you living in such a way that they see your good works and they glorify God? Do they see a difference in the way you do business? Do they see a difference in the way you live out your marriage? Really? Is there really a difference? Do we really have a light? Or are we just saying there's a difference? Do they see the difference? Will the result of having a relationship with you cause them to glorify God on the day that he visits? Will that be the result? It's so easy to get in the habit of living our life under this bowl we call church. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 9:19 through 23, he says, though I am free to belong to no one, I've made myself a slave to everyone to win as many as possible. To the Jews, I became like a Jew to win the Jews. To those under the law, I became like one under the law, though I myself am not under the law, as to win those under the law. To those that were weak, I became weak to win the weak. I become all things to all people, so that all possible means I might save some. I do all of this for the sake of the gospel, that I may share in its blessing. See, Paul cared about people. He cared about people so much that he wasn't religious anymore. And he said, whatever it takes, I'm going to be with people. If it's about guys that like to sit around and drink wine, I'm going to sit down with them as they drink wine. If it's about guys that like to smoke cigars and play poker, I'm in. I'm in. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters except them, that I might win a few. It's all about that. That was Paul's desire. The problem is sometimes we just get too strange. We make so much of little things in our life. I remember in high school going out with this girl whose parents were traveling evangelists. And they came to our town. She was really cute. And so I thought she'd be fun to take out. So I asked her, hey, you want to go out while you're here and just see the town? And she said, sure. So I went to their hotel, picked her up. We got in the car. I said, what would you like to do? She said, oh, anything. Be fine. I said, great. Let's go to the fair. Got a fair in town. I can't go to the fair. You can't go to the fair? No, my parents won't let me go to the fair. Well, let's go bowling. No, can't go bowling because there are people there that are kind of, so we can't go bowling. You got to stay away from that. Couldn't go to the movies. Couldn't do really anything. You see, I have to For her, I have to keep the world out completely. And so they could come to the crusades, and I could speak to them and sing for them and do all of these things for them, but unless they became a certain type of person, I can't spend time with them. And that's kind of sometimes how we are seen as a church. And I'll never forget going out with her. And it did impact my life quite a bit by just saying, who are we if we can't be out in the rest of the world? You're the light of the world. I encourage you, please, go out and shine. Go out and shine. I know a lot of you pretty well, and you are amazing. You're just absolutely amazing. And I will tell you, I would not be embarrassed for any of you to go out and be who you are in the world. And I would think that you would be very attractive to them. There's many of you that have such an amazing joy, such an amazing light. So you're so salty that they need to meet you. I was talking with someone the other night, and I was just saying, when I think about our church, I was talking to this person, I said, I think about you. When I think how great it is to be a pastor of this church, you're one of the first people that comes to my mind, because I would never be embarrassed to bring somebody to meet you. I wouldn't. And I feel that way about you guys now as a people. I don't have to be embarrassed. Sorry, they're kind of weird. Yeah, they're kind of weird. People go, I remember a few years back, one of the guys from the tobacco shop came. He says, I really want to go to your church. I said, okay, but hey, don't you have a church? No, I really don't. I'm actually looking for one. He came one time, and he never came back. And I asked him, how you doing? Well, you came. He says, it just wasn't for me. And I can understand that answer, but he was actually very offended and hurt and felt like I can't relate to that at all. We were actually, I'm going to just say this, we were kind of weird guys. We were. And now I want that guy to come back. I talked to him the other day. He's struggling in his marriage. He's having a really hard time. And I said, please, Larry, you and your wife, come to our church. You're going to find people that will really love you and care for you, that will accept you. Really, I really encourage you to come. See, I'm not embarrassed about you guys at all. You guys are amazing. It is such a privilege. Carl and I just sit around and sometimes we just get a little giddy. Carl does. I'm usually able to keep my composure. What's important to you? Is it the lost? Paul says, I care. All I care about is people. All of the trappings just don't matter. Nothing else matters. Whether I'm under the law or I'm not under the law, whether I act like I'm under the law, whether they're Jews, whether they're Greeks, whether they're gay, whether they're straight, whatever it is, I will be with them, so that I might win a few. When you get into their world, you will not be so offensive to them. And that's what I hope we become as a church, an unoffendable church, where anyone can come here, anyone can feel safe, anyone can feel loved, anyone can now experience the light and the salt that Jesus offers them, and that we would allow God, we would allow the Holy Spirit to do His work in their life, and that we wouldn't try to do it for Him. And that happens by simply loving them, sharing with them what He's done in your life and how He's affected you and the joy that you have. That's who I hope we become. Finally, be yourself. You don't have to be somebody you're not. I tell a story about how when I first became a therapist, I wanted to be Carl Whitaker. Carl Whitaker was really cool because he asked all these really weird questions that were just off the wall. And I thought, wow, I want to do that. I had no idea why he was asking those questions, but it was just really cool because he would shock people. So I thought, I'm going to do that. So people would come to see me, and I'd like throw out this weird, off-the-wall, out-of-the-blue question. And they'd look at me like, huh? And I go, yeah, just like Carl. And I was so ineffective as a therapist, let me tell you. I found out I'm not Carl Whitaker. I'm Don Wheeler. And all I can do is be me. All I can do is love people from where I'm at right now. And that's what you can do. Be who you are right now in Christ. You don't have to be anything other than that. God made you just the way you are for purpose. And nobody else can serve that purpose greater than you. And will he change you? Yes. But what he has for you right now, where you are, live there. Live there and live from there. Allow him to do whatever he wants to do, but live there. I have a very good friend who is autistic. I want her healed, but I do know that God has a purpose for her, and it will be accomplished through her. And I believe that there will be a day, maybe today, that she's healed. But until that day, I encourage her, live from where you are, because who you are is a gift. She's one of the greatest encouragements to me in my life. Live, be who you are. Live among the pagans, right in the middle of them. Live there. Let your light shine. I got so many stinking notes. You're the light of the world. Go out and live it. Let your light shine. Don't let Satan blow it out. Don't let him blow it out by our religiosity. Don't let him blow it out by our fear. Don't let him blow it out in any way. Just go be who you are. You don't have to have all the answers. You just don't. You have the answer. And you're learning. And you're growing. And I can't answer every question, but I can love them. So do that. Worship team, if you'll come forward. I am so proud of you guys, honestly. It's like so much fun to be your pastor. And we have people, Carl and I have people visit us, and they're just amazed at you, that you're here. And so am I. Guys, we have a call as a church. Our call is to impact our communities for Christ. It is. And we will not stop until we do that. And our whole emphasis this year, quite honestly, with Carl and I, and you'll hear us beat this drum, it's we got to go out and shine. We got to let people see who Jesus is, really is, because we have an answer to everything. It's Jesus Christ. It's Jesus Christ and him crucified and risen for them so that they can have life, they can have an abundant life, they can have a joy that they're looking for in every other place. We get to do that. That's our call. That's our commission. That's who we are. And we get to go and do it in our communities. If you don't know your neighbors, I encourage you to go meet them this week. Just go say hi.